more information is coming out about Charlie Kirk and particularly his assassin, a young 22-year-old gentleman. And well, it's after work, of course. The 8 to 5 life is finished for the week, and we're going to walk down to the river, get a little peace and a little clarity of mind. And of course, it's an urban river trail because, well, we're just about to leave the main city to go back to the homestead. But anyway, I wanted to share some more breaking news and some more things about what I've discovered and learned about this particular individual. So let's, with our fancy leather-soled cowboy boots, wander our way down and take a walk down the river to clear our minds while we discuss some very, very important topics. And while we're discussing, you might even see me fall flat on my ass. At least I have a tight-fitting hat, so it won't fall off. Of course, I have all my informations and my thoughts jotted down as well. Hopefully it's not too noisy there in the background, but we'll see. Anyway, 22-year-old young kid. I mean, I would like to say that that man is a monster. He is a man, a young man. But really, I almost struggle to call him a monster, and not because of what he did, but because he too is a victim, all the same. Of course, it doesn't condone what he did. It doesn't condone his beliefs and what drove him to assassinate an individual. Rather, it's because he too is a victim of what was discussed in the first video, which I don't know if any of you will even get to see it unless you check it out on the main channel. I'm being shadow banned. The video itself is banned, almost shadow banned, and the rest of the channel is being affected for it as well, because I chose instead to speak the truth, not be entertaining, not be silly, not be a degenerate, but speak actual genuine truth and actual genuine history. The history of these political parties and what they actually stand for, the history of their ideologies, and most importantly, the damning truth about who they actually are and what they actually stand for and what they actually do. And that's why I feel like this young gentleman, 22 years old, as much of a monster of his actions, of what he did, he too is a victim. Is a victim of the exact same poison that is poisoning the minds of our youth and has poisoned the minds of the youths of many generations all throughout history. And that is that extremism. The very far left, very far communistical ideologies, frankly, fascist ideologies, have also poisoned him just as well. Just as they have struggled to poison so many more of our youth, especially in the last 4 or 5 years or so. And it continues to poison our youth. As I've seen in the comments and in the reactions, but most importantly is what I've seen in his actions himself, and what he has stated and what kind of evidence has been found as well. So this gentleman not only premeditated his actions, not only did he conduct himself in such a way to genuinely assassinate somebody, planned it, executed it, done it, but also, it's a very reptilian day today. That was a good-sized gardener snake, Jesus Christ. A lot of frogs too out. Amphibious and reptilian day. I guess it's perfect temperature. Anyways, we walk a little bit through nature. I reflect a little bit more on what has happened and the things that I had brought up earlier. And this is why that kind of video is so important, and why it's so important for us to continue Charlie's mission, not of conservatism, not of religious dispositions, not of far right or far left, but his greatest mission of all, which is open discourse with our fellow man, with our fellow countrymen, to really understand each other, but also to challenge each other, to really make each other test ourselves and look within and reflect and really decide, do we truly believe what we're spouting? Do we truly believe what we're following? Do we truly stand on those principles? Or are we being led like sheep to the slaughterhouse? Which is exactly what's happening with this. That young man is a victim of the Bolshevism, the Leninism, the fascism, of the far left preaching that has been ongoing and invading a lot of the Democrat Party. And don't get me wrong, there's fascism that's also invading the far right party. As I mentioned before in the previous video, there are two factions that split off from that particular German party that are based on previous political structures. Trying to be careful to not get this one banned quite as quickly as the last video. So, on the conservative side, there's just as much extremism. Like the neos, for example, the far right, etc., etc. So this is not targeting particularly liberals or the lefts. However, this is just an example of why that video is so important and why this is so damning and dangerous. As I mentioned, that young individual was not only so proud of what he did, premeditated what he did, believed what he did, or at least he thought he did, but then he was proud afterwards and fully admitted it to his family, fully took ownership of it, and is still proud of it to this day. So not only had he become poisoned by rhetoric, poisoned by extremism, but it also was apparently written on his bullet, Bella Ciao, or Ciao Bella, which is not Italian, as far as I know. Interesting why he would choose that, because that is almost a nod, an homage to probably the modern day's greatest fascist, which may actually surprise you. It's actually an Italian who wrote the Modern Doctrine of Fascism in 1932. Giovanni Gentile. And I don't believe that that was a mistake, and I don't believe that it was just a coincidence that he would write that on his bullet. When engaging in the exact same tactics that fascism engages in, which are also the same tactics that Leninists and Bolsheviks had engaged in as well, when silencing their critics and their enemies, when they can't buy them out, they can't silence them, they can't ruin their reputation, they can't cancel them in today's rhetoric or today's logic. You assassinate them, you take them out. Physically, literally, definitively. And that is exactly what he had done. And make no mistake, the Leninists, the Bolsheviks, the communists of my era growing up, and the eras before, are very much true fascists, in the truest sense as I explained in the first video. It'll be linked here, so check it out, because I'm sure it's not going to be aired much at all, because I really delve into the depths of a lot of truth and a lot of honesty. But this is exactly why this type of thinking, this type of rhetoric, as I'm going back down a sandy trail this time, going back down to the riverside. I want to leave that other gentleman that was down there with his dog in peace and not aggravate him with thinking about more than he needs to think of. However, nonetheless, it still would be important to trigger that same level of thinking and the same level of discourse, because that was Charlie Kirk's main mission. That's what he stood for. That's what exactly he fought for and died for. So don't ever let that mission disappear. And even if you don't pin it on Charlie Kirk or award him with it, award yourself with that mission to save your fellow countrymen, to save your generation, to save your own people, to save yourself. Because this kind of behavior and rhetoric is a very dangerous precedent, and this is why. It will only get worse from here. And the more silent you stay, the less you ask questions, the less and less you will be able to ask questions when those questions really need to be asked. And when you really are dying and striving for an answer, because you have no other choice but to find an answer for why your life has not turned out the way it was promised. Because it was never intended to go the way it was promised, that's why. And when you really, really want them to answer and stand upon their principles and answer for what they've done and answer for what they've promised, well, you've waited too long. And not only is your chance to ask gone, but you won't even be allowed to. If you dare try, you become enemy of the state, enemy of society. Don't let that happen to America. The only reason why other countries have ever been able to flip around and change course is because they knew about America. They knew it existed, and as the people themselves began to understand what America offered, the American ideology, the American ideals, the American fundamentals offered, it came to a point where when the questions were no longer being answered when their right to ask those questions were being stifled, they too fell into extremism, but extremism to fight for their freedom. I guess one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. But nonetheless, that too is extremism. That too is improper. That too is inhumane. So let's avoid that by instead coming to the table and using our words, our logic, our passions, our minds, and actually discord with one another in a free way, in an honest way, and perhaps a very challenging and sometimes frightening way, but in a way that will save us all, not just now, but forevermore. Please do check out the first video. I go into much more detail about political history of these different parties and who they actually are and where they actually came from. It's an important thing to know, and it's an important thing to spread, and it's not conspiracy, it's true history. Actual history that has been written down. Written down, ironically, by the victors themselves. They basically signed their own gravestones. But nonetheless, it's real history. Don't let misinformation misguide you. That's our Fahrenheit 451 of our era. Instead, arm yourself with something that can never be taken away. They may be able to take away your rifles, your knives, your stones, your sticks. But none of those actually are what make you dangerous. What makes you truly dangerous is when you can't be fooled any longer. When your eyes are wide open, your ears are set to listen, and most importantly, your mind is set to think. The most dangerous being is the one who thinks, the one who understands, the one who learns, the one who knows. Knowledge is your greatest ammunition. Your mind is the most powerful cannon. And your voice, perhaps one alone, maybe sounds like a small .22 caliber popping off in the far distance. But when they all come together, and they all discord with one another, and they all come to a consensus and agree upon where the direction of their society, their culture, their people, their nation is set to head, that becomes the nuke, essentially. Nothing can stop it. So arm yourselves with knowledge, become the most dangerous being, the one who thinks, the one who understands, the one who asks questions and demands answers. Anyway, I'll keep on the story as much as possible because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, not so much about Charlie Kirk himself, rest in peace, my friend, but more because of what he stood for and what he had fought and ultimately died for. Most importantly, because I have come from a system like that. And though I was young, I was always reminded with stories about what life was actually like. And being blessed to have spent most of my life in America and experienced the joys, the freedoms, the blessings of this country. But to see it now being eroded away and taken away intentionally because of stupid ideology, extremism, it could be stopped so easily. The best way to stop it is just ask the hard questions and demand the difficult answers. And the best way to stop any sort of extremism is to do exactly that. And yes, we are facing an extremism crisis from all sides. Anyway, I'll keep you guys informed as we'll also return back to our normal content, of course. Please do share this video around and please go check out the long form. It is a very, very long one, but I cover a lot of detail, very important detail. Probably one of my longest videos to date, except for the small creator journey and how to become a small creator and succeed as one. That's coming up soon as well too. But we'll return back to our normal DIY content as well. But we'll stay abreast of the story because this is something that's very, very important and very, very near and dear to my heart. Because America is a guiding light. If this disappears, the rest of the world will follow. And it will never flip back over on its own because there's much the reason to. There's no example to follow. There's no fruits to reach for. Don't let this all disappear. Protect yourselves and protect the future of your people. Protect the future of life. Protect the future of liberty and freedom. Protect your families and yourselves. Become knowledgeable. That's something that can never be taken away from you. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next iteration.